Okay, Chapter 2. Captain Orlov and his outlaw hunters moved to the island that morning, making many trips from their ship to the beach of Coral Cove. Since the beach was small and almost flooded when the tide was in, he asked if he could camp on higher ground. This my father agreed to. Perhaps I should tell you about our island so you will know how it looks and where our village was and where the outlaws camped for most of the summer. Our island is 2 leagues long and 1 league wide. If you were standing on one of the hills that rise in the middle of it, you would think that it looked like a fish, like a dolphin, lying on its side, with its tail pointing towards the sunrise, its nose pointing to the sunset, and its fins making reefs and the rocky ledges along the shore. Whether someone did stand there on the low hills in the days when the earth was new and, because of its shape, called it the Island of the Blue Dolphins. I don't know many dolphins live in our seas, and it may be from them that the name came. But one way or another, this is what the island was called. The first thing you would notice was our island. I think it's the wind. It blows almost every day, sometimes from the northwest and sometimes from the east. Once in a long while, out of the south, all the winds except the one from the south are strong. And because of them, the hills are polished smooth and the trees are small and twisted. Even if the canyon that runs down to Coral Cove, the village of Galasat, lay east of the hills on a small mesa near Coral Cove and a good spring. About a half league to the north is another spring, and it was there that the outlaws put on their tents, which were made of skins and were so low to the earth that the men had to crawl into them on their stomachs. At dusk, we could see the glow of the fires. That night, my father warned everyone in the village of Galas against visiting the camp. The outlaws come from a country far to the north, he said. Their ways are not ours, nor is their language. They have come to take order and to give us our share in many goods, which they have and which we can use. In this way shall we profit, but we shall not profit. If we try to befriend them, they are people who do not understand friendship. They are not those who were here before, but they are people of the same tribe that caused trouble many years ago. My father's words were obeyed. We did not go to the outlaw camp, and they did not come to our village. But this is not to say that we did not know what they did, what they ate, and in what way they cooked it. How many otter were killed each day, and other things as well, for someone was always watching from the cliffs while they were hunting, or from the ravine when they were in camp. Ramu, for instance, brought news about Captain Orlov. In the morning when he crawls out of his tent, he sits on a rock and composes until the beard shines like a cormorant's wing. Romo said, "My sister Eulap, who was 2 years older than me, I gathered the most curious news of all. She swore that there was an outlaw girl among the hunters. She's dressed in skins just like the men, Uplep said. But she wears a fur cap, and under the cap she has a thick hair that falls on her falls to her waist. No one believed Ulap. Everyone laughed at the idea that the hunters would bother to bring their wives with them. The Aleuts also watched our village. Otherwise, they would not know about the good fortune which befell us soon after they came. It happened in this way. Early spring is a poor season for fishing. The heavy seas and winds of winter drive the fish into deep water where they stay until the weather is settled and where they are hard to catch. During this time, the village ate sparingly, mostly for stores of seeds harvested in autumn. Word of our good fortune came on a stormy afternoon, brought by Ulap, who was never idly. She had gone to a ledge on the eastern part of the island, hoping to gather shellfish. She was climbing on a cliff on the way home when she heard a loud noise behind her. At first, she did not see what had caused the noise. She thought that it was the wind echoing through one of the caves, and was about to leave when she noticed silvery shapes. On the floor of the cove, the shapes moved, and she saw it was a school of large white bass, each one as big as she was, pierced by killer whales which prey upon them with seals are not to be found. The bass had tried to escape by swimming toward shore, but in their terror they had mistaken the depths of the water and had been tossed into the rocky ledge. Ulap dropped her basket of shellfish and set out for the village, arriving there so out of breath that she could only point in the direction of the shore. The women were cooking supper, but all of them stopped and gathered around her, waiting for her to speak.
Would you like to try a burger made of plants? It's delicious, and I am
A school for white bass. She finally said, Where? Everyone asked.
America's favorites, made from
On the rocks, a dozen of them. Perhaps more than a dozen. Before Ulap had finished speaking, we were running toward the shore, hoping that we would get there in time, that the fish had not flopped back into the sea, or that a chance wave had not washed them away. We came to the cliff and looked down. The school of white bass was still on the ledge, glistening in the sun. But since the tide was high and the biggest waves were already lapping at the fish, there was no time to lose one. But when we hauled them out of reach of the tide, then two women carried a single fish, for they were all of about the same size and heavy. We lifted them up the cliff and brought them home. They were enough for everyone in our tribe for supper that night and the next. But in the morning, too, Atlas came to the village and asked to speak to my father. You have fish, one of them said. Enough only for my people, my father answered. You have 14 fish, the Atlut said. 7 now, because we ate 7. From 7 you can spare 2. There are 40 in your camp, my father replied, and more than that of us. Besides, you have your own fish, the dried ones that you brought. We tire of that kind, the Atlut said. He was a short man who only came to my father's shoulders, and he had small eyes like black pebbles and a mouth like the edge of a stone knife. The other athlete looked very much like him. "You are hunters," my father said. "Go and hunt your own fish if you are tired of what you are eating now. I have my people to think of. Captain Orlov will hear that you refuse to share the fish." "Yes, tell him," my father said, "but also why we refuse." The outlaw grunted to his companion, and the two of them stalked off of their short legs across the sand dunes that lay between the village and the camp. We ate the rest of the white bass that night, and there was much rejoicing. But little did we know, as we ate and sang, and the older men told stories about the fire, that our good fortune would soon bring trouble to Gallus at.